from the training standpoint, managers are your highest ROI. They're going to be the ones that make the difference no matter what. And if I'm going to intervene, I'm going to improve anybody, it's the manager that is going to be the highest return on my time. And Life Labs came in and basically provided a through line experience for every employee of like the behaviors that matter, trying to set these managers up for success by providing them training on these behaviors and like endorsing the idea that like there's many ways to do things, but this is the way that we think would be most efficient for you.
Welcome to the Leader Lab podcast. I'm Michaela Mathry, Chief Marketing Officer at Life Labs Learning. If you're a senior people leader, you're navigating a workplace that's changing faster than ever. This season, we're exploring what it really takes to build resilient and adaptable leaders, managers, and teams. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Leader Lab. My name is Michaela Mathry, and today I am joined by Patrick Choquette. We're so excited to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, we're really excited to be recording down here live in Charleston, South Carolina today. Patrick Choquette is the Director of Learning and Development at the Obama Foundation. His career spans public service, global development, innovation, and leadership development, from serving as a Peace Corps volunteer in Ghana to working on the 2008 Obama campaign to leading innovation partnerships at the Peace Corps with organizations like Duolingo and NASA. He led global learning and development at Acre Fund, supporting more than 9,000 employees across 8 countries in work that impacted over 1.5 million farmers. Today at the Obama Foundation, Patrick focuses on building stronger managers, more connected teams, and learning cultures that can scale across the organization during a transformational moment tied to the opening of the Obama Presidential Center in Chicago. Excited to hear more about that. Patrick plays a crucial role in shaping a multi-year partnership with Life Labs Learning, focused on leadership development across managers, individual contributors, and frontline staff. He has helped shape more consistent leadership practices, stronger communication, and shared learning experiences across the foundation. In this conversation, we're going to talk about winding career paths, leadership in mission-driven organizations, scaling learning across diverse audiences, and what it really takes to build cultures rooted in growth, adaptability, and hope. Welcome again. We are so excited to have you on the podcast today.
Wow, thanks. Thanks for that intro.
First off, how you doing? You're solo parenting this past weekend, which can be a little full on.
Yeah. I'm basking in the joy that brings and then the relief of it being over.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you appreciate the partnership. I feel like there's been a little bit of a trend here that folks that we've had on the podcast are raising toddlers. So I also like to ask, like, how many hours of sleep did you get last night? Do you want to reflect on
actually,
that? Oh, really?
We got good sleepers at our house.
Okay.
A professional trainer over here. So.
Oh, okay. Well, then you should probably come over to my house because I think last night I got like 4 hours of sleep. So I'm always, it's real. I'm always telling the team, I'm like, take everything I say with a grain of salt because I'm slightly.
No, been there. It's just, like we're in a good phase.
Yeah.
So,
So and how old are your kiddos, Patrick?
I have a 4-year-old son and a 1-year-old son.
And a 1-year-old. Amazing. Yeah. Amazing. Awesome. Well, we start every episode with the same question. And that is, can you share one small behavioral shift that you've made recently as a leader and what impact that had?
A shift I've made recently is a bit of just like a reminder of how I learn. It's a reflection of that. I've moved to like project-based learning for myself. So I feel like I got into like a habit of just listening to podcasts like this one, watching some LinkedIn learning video, reading some marketing email from Culture Amp or whatever. I realized that like I had blocked some time off for this like learning to happen, on my calendar. And then I was never doing it. And so I just was like figuring out like why that is. Like, so I switched to just like okay, how do I learn myself? A little bit of reflection, and it's sort of like project-based learning. So I kind of created a task, something that I didn't think I could do, and then went about learning everything I needed to know to be able to do that task.
Interesting.
And so that really, and then I found myself at 11:30 at night.
Yeah.
Learning. That was like an indicator that's like, that's a reminder of like how I actually want to learn myself.
That's so interesting. So instead of just like more topical, you're like, here's a thing I want to do, and then I'm going to figure out how to do that. And then in the middle of that, pick up kind of the skills and what I need. What are some examples? Like, what are some of the projects that you've...
Trying to figure out how to do AI better, basically.
Totally.
How to use it,
Yes.
and how to use it, like with the tools that are available this week as opposed to the tools that were available 3 weeks ago when I last,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
formulated an understanding of how it worked. And so this one was like, got some data that's in Workday. I want to visualize it and share it across my team. Basically just went to Gemini. It's like, here's the problem. This is what I want to do. Ask me a bunch of questions about what figure out what I actually want to accomplish, push me to be more simple about it, nudge me and, to learn different things, and just like a pretty good like prompt that basically just said like, this is what I want to do, but like I want to learn how to do it. That led to me like building a bunch of like dashboards. Which
amazing. Yeah. How was the end result? Like, how did the product look when you were
great?
really? Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty. I mean, it is amazing now. Like the fact that you can just have this AI who can kind of just like coach you through any problem. Like, I don't know how, like, it's not working, or like the filter's messed up. Like, what could be the problem? And to me, it was just like a recognition of like how it can just sort of guide you through whatever issue you have to get to a product.
Totally. I think a lot of us have had that experience specifically with AI as well. And it sounds like some of that bled into like life outside of work too. Like you're saying, you're working till 11 o'clock at night. And I think that's something I've noticed, especially as honestly, there's a learning curve with all the AI models, right? Like totally. I'm a Claude super user at this point, and I still have barely scratched the surface on like what's capable, but also used ChatGPT for a long time. And with all of these, it's like there's not time in the workday to do that. So, and I think that's a trend I've noticed with folks. It's like, well, I spent the weekend trying to figure out X, Y, Z. And that's where, for me, a lot of that kind of learning is happening.
Completely agree. I feel like it's hard to put a time bound on that because that kind of like forces you to skip over some stuff, or as opposed to be like, what did I do there? Or like, asking it a bunch of questions to help you actually absorb it, as opposed to just building something quickly,
Totally. I think there's like actually a great nugget in there too, in terms of like, as we're learning these technologies, to really have something specific that you're trying to do with it. You're like, I want to visualize this data for this audience by this time. And then that's going to kind of force the motion versus be a little bit more broad. I'm also like an avid learner, and I find myself listening to podcasts and things. And I'm like, oh my gosh, these are all great ideas. Right. And I'm like driving the kids to daycare, and I'm like, this is amazing. This is such a great idea. But then like getting to that like implementation, that's the challenge.
100%. And I just realized I was on to the next podcast before I ever like paused to extract what I was actually going to do about it.
Yes. Absolutely.
So then I was like filling my head with a bunch of stuff and doing the same thing.
Yes, exactly.
I did before. So
exactly. So interesting. And probably there's some tie-ins here to learning in the workplace in general. Patrick, I'd love like a quick tour. Can you talk about kind of your current role, what you're doing at the Obama Foundation, and then maybe a little bit of what brought you there as well?
Yeah, so my role now is Learning Development Director. So I sit on the people team of one. So that means I focus on figuring out what the highest ROI interventions might be. At the end of the day, increase our staff's perception that this is a great place for them to develop, because that's kind of like the North Star that I'm kind of working off of. So that looks like a lot of system building, some training. My time at the Obama Foundation is kind of chapter 3 of my Obama journey. Started with the campaign in 2008, went to the administration for 4 years, working with the Peace Corps admin, and then now the foundation.
Nice.
So the trifecta. In between there is a lot of classroom teaching.
Okay.
So taught high school in the Peace Corps originally. That was my first job. Did some basketball coaching, actually a little bit before that. Taught middle school science for a while. So that's been sort of like the journey. It's been teaching mixed with Obama throughout, and brought me to what I think is just like a really interesting, like perfect spot for me. Figured when I was applying, I was like, there's no way I'm not getting this job, which turned out to be a lot more difficult than it was. But at the time, I was like, man, if it, like in my heart, like this is just feels like a perfect fit. Yeah. And I just cannot communicate that in an interview.
Yes, absolutely. What an awesome through line. When you think about the difference between teaching young folks like high schoolers and adults, Well, what are some like the differences? Are there that many differences?
I feel like in the L&D world, we're like, we talk about adult learning all the time. I always am like trying to de-blur what that exactly means. I find that's like a lot of the same principles that I really honed when I was a middle school teacher, are the same things that I'm doing, especially when it comes to the facilitation and training part of the L&D work, which I've actually tried to like make less of my full-time job.
Sure.
I feel like that's where like that part of it, I think I understand what works and what doesn't work in terms of getting people to engage.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Sidebar, when I really figured out teaching was probably in like year 3 or 4 of teaching middle school kids who just have this amazing feedback loop of letting you know when they're not engaged.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true.
And so therefore, when I was in Peace Corps teaching in Ghana to high school kids, they looked like they were engaged. They're looking at me. They're very well, everybody's like well behaved, but I was just figuring it out. And in retrospect, they were not engaged. They're just complying. And so in middle school, I think I learned what creates engaging facilitation, what creates engaging content. And I feel like those lessons I've learned, I apply now to adults, and the same thing. You got to get people to engage.
I love that middle school is a training ground. I actually taught middle school for a year. I lasted for 1 year. And it was, to this day, I think it was the hardest job I've ever had. Like, it's full on. I like the way you said that, though, about the feedback loop. Yeah. Absolutely. They're very vocal about what's landing and what's not. And they're going to give you harsh criticism, real-time feedback. It's so true. You're literally learning on your feet. You're like, okay, like that didn't land yesterday, but I really need this to translate today. How am I going to try something new? And I felt like I was just constantly iterating. And the thing that I oftentimes found worked in my classroom, at least, was connecting it more to how folks were feeling and like what they were showing up with in their personal lives. And that tended to be a lot more resonant, and that was hard, and like breaking into small groups and trying things in different ways. But absolutely, like such a proving ground, I think for many folks in education.
Yeah, you don't have to ask for feedback.
You do not. You do not. They will give it unsolicited, and it's usually spot on, right? Which is like,
especially about my appearance. Yeah.
Exactly. I think this is so common in L&D that we hear about these kind of non-linear career arcs, and yours spans education, public service, political organizing, and now you're at the Obama Foundation. Looking back, what do you think was kind of a common thread through all of those?
To me, there was like L&D is like the how right now, but the mission and like the what I'm trying to do has kind of been the same throughout. That started when I was a Peace Corps volunteer, kind of my first baptism into the real world, and just as a young person, 25 years old, moving across the world to Ghana and being confronted with just basically inequality daily, like in my face for 2 years, I think became my, I don't know if it's the why or the what, but it's like kind of like that's the problem trying to solve. I feel for me, that's like what I'm passionate about, is I think the why being like understanding in those relationships I built with the people there at that such a formative time in my own development, and like why is it that they have that opportunity and why do I have my opportunity, and confronting my own privilege and all those things before I even knew what that even was just like a gigantic formative emotional bond to what I want to do. Since then, it's been all about, okay, what's the mechanism? How do I be most effective? How do I have the biggest impact on that? And that's taken lots of different forms.
And specifically kind of focusing on inequality and access. That's so interesting. And it's interesting to think about, like, said you went to Ghana when you were 25. Yeah. Like how different maybe that would have been if it had come later in life. Like it's really like those early years where you're kind of like forming self and trying to figure out like, what is my contribution in the world? Like, how am I going to show up? And that's a pivotal moment.
And Peace Corps experience is uniquely magical in that way. And maybe, especially for me at that time, you can imagine like you're coming out of your college time. You're seeing beyond your own nose for the first time, questioning a lot of everything. And I felt like I was in an environment that like basically forced me into really learning. I didn't have a phone, don't have internet, don't have like TV. There's nowhere to escape. So it's like you kind of go out, you experience something. And then like my one like thing that I did was journal a lot. And I think again, that was like intentional, but in retrospect, I recognize like how, especially like now I see like these life labs behaviors of like what it is. It's like I was basically extracting the learning pretty much every day. That just like caused me this like beautiful loop of like stimulus, like an unbelievable new experience, journal, extract something, try something new, experience something brand new, fail at it, go back, journal about it. And I don't think I would have had the discipline now to do that if I had any other option. But
totally.
Peace Corps, like the electricity is, there's only candle burns from, sun goes down at 6 o'clock and it's right on the equator. So 6 o'clock, sun goes down, candle burns for a little bit. There's only so much reading you can do. And then you got your thoughts.
And then it's just you. That is so interesting. And I guess like, even now, like if there was electricity there, like how that experience would have evolved. Similarly, I spent about 9 months in my early 20s in Tanzania and Mozambique. And I also did not have a cell phone, didn't have internet. And I reflect on that time and I'm like, now most folks in the places where I was absolutely have electricity. And so they've got cell phones and internet. But how powerful that was. Like I remember like specifically I was in northern Mozambique, pretty rural. And I remember just like after a long day where you're trying to communicate, I was trying to learn Makua and Portuguese at the same time. And then your brain is just like so fried at the end of the day, but you're like so engaged and like reflective. I spent my early career actually working in international education because that was so formative for me early on. And I so strongly believe that like those experiences are huge catapults for folks in terms of, right, like understanding not just like inequality, but like how people live and operate around the world and how it's different, but like also not that different. Like I remember like my closest friend in northern Mozambique, I still think about her often. Like her life was so different than mine, but we were very similar people. Right. And that is like powerful when you're in your
That's what makes it
20s.
special. I mean, if it was like some alien life form that you had nothing to connect with, you'd be like, oh, that's interesting that they do that. But you can see yourself and what they do. And so I agree. I think that just like creates like something in your brain. It's like some emotional connection to the issues that, I think we were lucky enough to have those experiences.
Shifting gears, I'd love to hear a little bit about, you were part of the 2008 Obama campaign, working out of Iowa. Years later, you mentioned you've kind of had the trifecta. You're now back at the Obama Foundation during a really interesting time as they prepare to open the center. So I'd love to hear about kind of what does that full circle journey mean to you personally?
Kind of like going back on that Peace Corps experience, going through that sort of emotional, I don't want to call it emotional trauma, but just like emotional stimulus of that experience. My mother sent me a book called Dreams from My Father, written by one Barack Obama. And I read that probably about like 75% through my 2 years, followed up quickly by The Audacity of Hope, Barack's second book. That again, it's like timing wise, Barack's message of like a clear unflinching of like explanation of how the world is, followed by like a vision of how the world should be, basically gave me hope. And so that I've kind of clung on to that. So out of that Peace Corps experience, I came back with like an understanding of like what I wanted to do, or like what I wanted to try to do, or or what meant something to me, and then hope that it can be done. Plus a real, like you were mentioning, like a realistic view of like how the world works. So I wasn't like naive. So that hope fueled me to like, stick with this like hard problem that is, I don't know, intractable. I don't even know how to explain it, but just like at least I'm feel motivated to stick with it, right? And so Barack, to me, was that he represented like a hope of like a belief that we could do something about it, and that not that he could do something, but I could actually do something about it. And that if it's even a small part, other people too are doing their small parts, and we can all do that. And that, frankly, it's like the effect. It's like the narrative of the museum. Our mission at the foundation is to inspire, empower, and connect people to change their own lives fortunate I got to go with my full family, dad, brother, sister, my
Amazing.
nephews, my
Yeah.
niece, and my kids and my wife, and went through the museum recently. It was about 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
It is a full circle moment, honestly, back
Yeah.
to like just like reflecting on the last 20 years of my life doing it, and like maybe what made it like really special was we went on Mother's Day.
No, it's great. It's like a really good moment. When we met for coffee a couple weeks ago, and you were telling me about your work with the Obamas, was that kind of your experience?
So like when Barack won, I worked for basically a year and a half every day, talking to people, trying to organize and like basically communicate and like get people on board with this message and giving people hope, which was like an amazing experience. Like went to 6 different states all across the
Nice.
US,
Yeah.
got to organize around gun rights in my district in Colorado had Columbine High School in it.
Yeah.
Got to go to talk about racial equality in Canton, Mississippi, where like the book A Time to Kill is based. That was just like again, just kind of like opportunity after opportunity, and amazing formative experience. And so like by the end, when he won, it was I kind of it hit me like I had like seeing him accept. I wept like a so the museum experience it reminded me of that experience. So I had these like the overwhelming like joy and like reminder, and then it's also painful a bit. One to just be reminded of you know I was knocking on people's doors. Not all of them were so friendly. Just like the pushback that we were getting and the misinformation, in retrospect now I recognize how that like kind of blossomed into this counter movement that exists today. So it was a bit of like a reminder of that part of the experience as well, which was sad.
Yeah.
It was very sad. I remember it being sad at the time.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it didn't make any sense to me
Yeah.
at the time. Still doesn't. And then there is just like a level of disappointment of like, yeah, I'm not naive enough to think that it wasn't worth it. That's not how I feel at all. I feel like it was complete. We made a gigantic difference. What we're experiencing today is a ripple effect of that gigantic difference. It's hard to not feel a little bit disappointed on just like how a counter narrative caught on with certain people that
Totally.
led to this led to this moment we're on. So
Yeah.
a lot of emotions
Yeah.
that go there, and I think that's hitting pretty much everybody who goes there. I remember one of the first changes we made, like in a meeting after we started having people go through the museum. Nothing to the museum. My colleagues had done an unbelievable job putting it all together. We had to put tissues into because people needed those.
Like actually really emotional.
Yeah, so like it's hitting everybody
Yeah.
in a way, and I think it's like a release of
Yeah.
what we've like swallowed over the last,
Yeah.
I don't know how many years.
20.
Yeah.
20. It's 20. Yes, crazy, right? All right, shifting gears a little bit. I love for listeners to hear about your work at One Acre Fund, and maybe even before we get into that, if you can explain a little bit about One Acre Fund.
Sure.
I'm familiar with them because I spent significant amount of time in East Africa and always like really admired them from afar and was really inspired by that organization. But while working there, you were supporting learning across this massive organization with thousands of employees and dozens of languages. Telling us a little bit about One Acre Fund and kind of your work there and how that informed what you're doing today.
Yeah, so One Acre Fund is a farmer supporting social enterprise with the mission of essentially solving poverty. I mean, it's super ambitious. And the mechanism being providing access to better seeds, fertilizer, training to help a farmer grow more on their farm and in turn get more money. Their bottom line is basically an ROI, like how much money can we take in terms of donor funds, and what's our ratio to turning that into increased dollars for our clients. So we're always looking for like measuring impact in a really crystal clear way. Allowed us to run a nonprofit and think like a business. Basically, that's one of our principles there. So amazing experience of like showing how a really well run organization can make a huge impact. To me, that was like a eye-opening moment to me is that, not that I didn't know this, but it's not about just like wanting to do the right thing, but like that there is like an execution factor.
Yeah.
You know, I was heartbroken by the fact you learn about like a lot of nonprofits that take $1 and turn it into 50 cents for people.
Yes.
And we were laser focused on not being that. And I have a lot of credit to our leadership, Andrew Yoon, the CEO.
Yeah,
Eric
he's
Pullman.
fascinating.
Yeah, these guys are like amazing leaders, and I had like amazing managers.
Yeah.
And so for me at that time, I was basically exposed to like what a environment is that allows for like gigantic individual growth while you're there.
Interesting. Yeah.
So a system of like, you got measures, so you know how, if you're moving up and down, you got honesty, you got feedback, you've got an amazing manager, all those things. Like, it just exposed me. I hadn't had that experience before. And it's really the inspiration for me of like, okay, how can I recreate that environment as an L&D professional? Because I feel like that systematic environment is what led. It wasn't a magical PowerPoint training. It was all those things combined.
Interesting. Yeah. And your role there, were you working in learning and development as well?
Yeah. So it was my first like L&D title role.
Yeah.
So I was global learning and development director, which basically meant I managed about a team of 15 folks across our 8 countries. Who ran L&D programs within their own country programs. But personally on that journey was, you know, I think it's interesting because it's like I was learning how to do L&D, but really I was learning how to be a manager. And there was like this just fundamental structural issue that caused me from moving from an individual contributor mindset to a manager mindset, which is that I don't speak Luganda, Kinyarwanda, Kiswahili. I can't, it's hard for me to connect culturally with 8 different countries. And I had these facilitators in my staff who could. And I realized that like, even if I wanted to, I couldn't. And so I had to figure out a way to how to empower these folks.
Yeah. It was like a real constraint.
Yeah, it's a real constraint.
Actually, this is not even like, oh, I'm just going to do it myself. It's like, no, I'm actually incapable of doing that. And therefore, I must figure out how to give these folks the skills and resources to do the work.
Completely. That actual real constraint, I think. I don't know if I ever would have got there, because I feel like everybody kind of understands that.
Yes.
But most people still act as individual contributors.
Yeah.
You know? So in parallel, I was going through that my own experience as a manager and running into failures trying to be an individual contributor still.
Interesting.
Right? Had a bit of a mindset shift, again, forced by that like structural aspect of it. And then had some success as a manager and saw impact scale exponentially when I got out of people's way and actually supported them like a real manager. And I think that effectively allowed me to be able to recognize what good managers do. I also can empathize with like the manager experience, and all most people I'm working with are still in that journey. They've never been forced out of being an individual contributor. It just basically gave me a vision of like how it could be.
Interesting.
Like a real clear understanding of like that transition and what that emotional journey is like. And then also just like the experience of having employees that work for you and recognizing like you set up a system for them to thrive. I have Emmanuel worked for me in Kenya. He worked in the mailroom. Once I sort of figured out how to like explain what we were trying to do and measure it and made crystal clear on like, here's what success looks like. He was so smart, he could figure it out. And then he started just like blowing up. Now he's like my job at like Care International and Habitat for Humanity. Like, it's just like insane. There's just like multiple stories like that. And I think it, for my L&D folks, like sometimes I was thinking about preparing this interview, and it's like, it comes back to like, I had this magical retreat.
Yeah, really.
I feel like that's the fantasy.
Right. And that kind of is the catalyst. Yeah.
There's like fantasy that like, oh, if we had this like amazing team retreat, everything would change. But I think I had an experience like that where I went from trying to like present information to people to like having a clear point of view on the behaviors that I want them to do, challenging them directly with how to be more consistent in those behaviors,
Mm.
how to measure the impact of those behaviors basically by success metrics. And anyways, it was just like an experience of like just a total mindset shift of like how to actually develop someone. And it was like a kind of a breaking point there
Interesting.
of
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
going from basically knowledge
Yeah.
based
Yeah.
advice giving to skill building and
Yes.
behavior building
Yeah.
habits, which
Absolutely.
is what Life Labs is all about, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I imagine a lot of effective frequency and also commenting and noticing, like, yes, that is the thing. That is the right behavior, like reinforcing the good, because
Yeah.
I think that helps people grow as well. Maybe shifting gears a little bit, you actually met Megan Wheeler, who is a friend of both of ours down here in Charleston. You met her at a garage sale, and she is incredible. I'm sure many folks that listen are familiar with Megan. She's an L&D director now as well, but was a founding member of Life Labs and really built out a lot of our facilitation team and facilitation style. But you met her at garage sale. And then, I'd love to kind of hear about that. What was the origin? And then why did you end up working with Life Labs?
So we were both going for like a broken down F-150 Power Wheels.
For yourselves, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which now I realize they're just thrown away on the side of the road all the time. You can just get them
You're
all the
like,
time. But at the time I was like, I need that, So her and her husband Anton and my
Yeah.
wife and we just kind of connected, talked,
Yeah.
and then you
Yeah.
just quickly pick up that like Megan is like a really smart person, knows what
Mm.
she's doing, and also like as an L&D person, I'm always wondering like, am I doing the right thing?
Yes.
As a, what are you doing?
Social feedback. Yeah. Absolutely.
So that's where I never heard of Life Labs Learning.
Yeah.
But so I kind of knew that she worked for Life Labs Learning. I started like learning a little bit more about it. And then eventually I was thinking, okay, so like how at the foundation, I'm a team of one. I was already convinced of all these experiences we just talked about that managers are the focus and like getting managers to do it. And I knew that you had to have like some set defined behaviors. In my back of my head, I knew what a good intervention would look like.
Interesting.
Right?
Yep.
And so started like looking at Life Labs Learning a little bit, but then eventually I just asked Megan straight up, and I like, you're my neighbor, my friend, like, is this like a legit? And she said, yes. I personally don't have a high view of like L&D consultants.
Totally.
Yeah. Not that
have you had some bad experiences in the past, or it's just more of like
I think it's just like systematically set up to placate a leadership's want for an easy fix to a problem that's not easy. I always thought like if I ever go broke, I'll just become an L&D consultant. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, structurally, you don't have the facilitators, the relationships to like drive these behaviors into habits. So I was very skeptical of basically anybody.
Coming in from
the outside. I just didn't know if it was like possible. But I saw in Life Labs, like they've got a real strong point of view on the behaviors. I recognized that they have, like, I trusted their research on these are like the generic behaviors that'll help us no matter what the problem is. Because we don't know what the problem is half the time, right? The problem is evolving all the time. So I knew that this is like a safe bet that this would be like fundamentally evergreen skills. And I also, spent a lot of time at Acre Fund coming off the experience of like building facilitators.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I knew how hard that is.
Yeah.
And I was teaching experience and I found out how hard it is to be a good facilitator. The fact that I got exposed to some of these facilitators. The Obama Foundation, we've been lucky enough to have kind of like 2 facilitators that have gone through tens and tens of workshops. Brittany and Darius are just like amazing facilitators. And I think they've been able to like build a relationship. They have an emotional connection. It's almost like they are a part of the team.
Have rapport. Yeah.
Except I didn't have to train them.
Yes. Yeah.
And so we have like great behaviors. We've got trainings that are in their 34th, 35th iteration, solid feedback loops. So I just kind of started seeing all those things at Life Labs and I was like, that'll work.
Yeah.
I just knew that would work because I just looked for like the structure of it. And through the competitive process of figuring out who to give the contract to, like Life Labs just won that process. They matched kind of the mindset that I had just came to understand to be effective over time.
Interesting. I appreciate that context. And I think it'd be interesting for our listeners to hear about, like, you came into the Obama Foundation, you've got this L&D experience, you have an expectation and some thoughts about like how you're going to build this out. How did you kind of go about like, who are you going to train first? And then next, I think one of the interesting things I know about our work with you is that we've trained a full range of folks from leaders to managers to even frontline workers.
Yep.
So I'd love to kind of hear about like, how did you think about that as you were building out the programming?
My experience at Acre Fund, I learned so much about like how to be an L&D person. And so my time at the Obama Foundation, I was like, okay, now I'm going to like do it right from day one. And so kind of two big ideas. One, I knew that like from the training standpoint, managers are your highest ROI, right?
Yep.
That they're going to be the ones that make the difference no matter what,
Yeah.
no matter what. And if I'm going to intervene, I'm going to improve anybody. It's the manager that is going to be the highest return on my time. And secondly, I knew that they have to be in a system that is like helping them. So I actually spent a lot of my time when I first got there, no training.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
To my leaderships, like I don't know if they were like okay with that, but I was like, okay, I need to think about incentives for learning. So I spent a lot of time on the performance review, making sure that it's happening, making sure that the incentives are lined up, tied it to like bonuses. Like probably the important change that I made to the performance review was we do 50-50. So 50 is what you accomplish and 50 is how. And I made sure that like for managers, the how is management.
Interesting.
Behaviors of management. So that frankly, so in theory, let's see if everybody executes correctly, but in theory, 50% of their performance review is how they're doing as a manager based off of behaviors defined in a model. So, and then for everyone, a third of the how is embracing improvement. So I tried to create ways that like created incentives and motivations for people to actually learn. Did not want to just like fall into the fallacy of it's a supply problem.
Right.
Which I think I don't know if people actually believe that, but that's how they act. They act like, if we just had.
Try and solve for it.
Yeah. Yeah. We just need to offer more workshops. We need to offer more tools and that'll magic. I recognize that like the tools are out there.
Yes.
You don't actually.
I think we've seen a lot of that with like e-learning too, where it's like, well, it's more of a check the box motion is how we think of it. Like, well, you just put it out there and then if they need it, they're going to go use it. And it's like, is that how I've ever learned anything in my life? Literally no. Like,
and if they don't do it, it's kind of on them.
Yes.
Right.
Right. Less accountability for the organization, trying to drive that change. I love that. So you kind of started with that performance review bucket and then moved into incentives, like what motivates folks and would actually drive them to want to participate.
And then another big thing is just like measuring. So another big thing I did was like implement like an engagement survey. So when we did an intervention, I'd have some sort of like longer term sort of outcome to tie it to. Before I got to any sort of training, it was incentives tied to that measurement and then Life Labs. And Life Labs came in and basically provided a through line experience for every employee of like the behaviors that matter, provided a manager, we did manager core 1, manager core 2, individual contributor core. So we had a manager. I'm trying to set these managers up for success by providing them training on these behaviors and like endorsing the idea that like there's many ways to do things, but this is the way that we think would be most efficient for you, right? And then also training their employees on those same behaviors so they don't have to build the buy-in and the vocabulary. Once we opened the center and we started hiring a new group of employees who have less disposable or freedom in their time, had to be even more concise. And there we worked with Life Labs to do a customization of essentially influential communication workshop that was sort of rooted in the behaviors and skills that would provide exceptional customer service to our visitors that come to the center.
Right. And I know that the team shared a stat with me that you've driven over 85% attendance to the workshops. Anything to share with listeners on what that is? I think what I'm hearing is like, and I think this is a through line for you, like creating the systems where people want to engage, but that's a really strong rate that I think a lot of folks, are striving for in numbers like that.
It's hard to, I think it is, I think hopefully the theory of change holds, it is the incentives, but I was especially to get going, I was in people's DMs. If they weren't there, I was just asking, are you okay? I didn't see you at the workshop. Like just establishing.
There's an expectation.
And establishing an expectation, and then establishing, I love that behavior because it basically tells an individual that organization cares about their development. So like if you don't go, I'm gonna ask you like why?
Where were you?
Where were you? And not in a like you're in trouble way, but just like all I want you to know is that it matters to us as the organization that you're investing in yourself. So make sure that you like prioritize that.
Right. Like we're doing this as much for you and your growth as we are for the organization and to kind of move us forward.
A lot of DMs on Slack. I think I
like that. Yeah.
DM'd every single employee
about a workshop or two. Yeah.
Yes.
They're like, he's that guy. It's in my DMs about attending a workshop. We talked at the beginning about a behavior change that you've made recently. I'd love to hear one small behavioral shift that you'd recommend for listeners who want to build more resilient, adaptable teams and something that they could try tomorrow. Because obviously at Life Labs, we can't stop talking about behavior change and how critical that is.
My suggestion is something that I try to do is like when you're in your AI prompts, kind of going back to this, like use your Life Labs behaviors, let alone that it creates a better prompt and a better outcome of what you're doing, but like also is like a great way to practice that habit. So like a lot of times with my AI prompt or a little chat, I will make sure I Q step and I will ask it to Q step me. I'll look for blur words in my prompts and try to deblur them. And then probably like most important is like pausing before shipping something and like reflecting, like, did I just create something that looks great, that feels good, or is it actually worthwhile? And like that little check there, go back.
Yeah.
Most of the time you're going to go back and,
refine it.
Refine it. I think that's a cool thing because like you create better products, but also you like are living these behaviors that you're teaching everybody. And it's just such a great way to practice behaviors.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a great example. And I'm like, gosh, we could all do a little bit more of that in real time. And even, I don't know if you've spent time with Lab Coach AI, but with Lab Coach AI and the platform, like you can actually go in there and it's all built on our content and the behavioral units that we teach. And I do that oftentimes. I'm like, I have to give feedback. I'm going to go in and I'm going to like chat it through and then figure out how to do that in a way that's within a structure, right? Because if you just go sometimes to the LLMs or an open model, you're like, oh my gosh, this might give me 20 different ways to do this, which is not helpful and like more refined. Thank you so much for joining us today, Patrick. It's been so lovely to have you on the podcast. If folks want to find you, connect with you, follow up, or ask questions, what is the best way for them to get in touch?
I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. I don't.
Yeah. So are we. We all are.
We all are, I guess. But I would love to see you at the center. Yeah. So like I think for everybody, like go to obama.org, learn more about the center and come and visit, check it out. It is an amazing experience. And you will not be disappointed. Bring your whole family, go eat in the restaurants around in the neighborhood, stay in an Airbnb in the neighborhood. That's my experience, just so you can kind of like get the full experience of the South Side while you're there visiting the center.
Ooh, I love that. And I'm going to probably take you up on that. I love Chicago and like, it sounds like such an incredible space. So congratulations too on all the work that you've put in to that. Like it's a big accomplishment. And I know, when is the grand opening?
June.
Is it?
18th.
Wow. Oh, nice.
Yes, it's coming up.
Wow. It's going to be here before we know it. Thank you again, Patrick. So great to have you on the Leader Lab.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.